And now our next story will be influencing our topic of discussion tonight, where we are talking about self-identity. We want to know about our personalities, and they say knowing yourself is wisdom, but it is very difficult to define yourself if you can't have someone to explain to you. Many of the times that we find people very confused, and here is a feature of about a personality or self-identity. Take a look.
You do not discover your identity in as much as you evolve into it. As you discard the image of the former self, you allow the authentic self to emerge. According to author Neil Donald, self-identity is seen to be an evolving process over the course of your lifetime. In keeping with this understanding, make it a lasting priority to discover your essential self to avoid living in an authentic life. Once realized, strive to live according to those values and principles by embodying them at the deepest level. Be wary of associating conduct with identity, given it's an accurate measure of character. Behavior is fluid and changes as you grow and evolve. True identity is formed through self-awareness by letting go of conditioned thoughts and beliefs. At this level, your choices are in alignment with your true identity. You challenge long-held beliefs by choosing to retain thoughts that resonate with your deepest self while discarding others. As your life circumstances change, you integrate those experiences into your identity. Your self-esteem is reinforced when you uphold this image. As you look past inherited cultural identities, for example, tough, emotional, sensitive, brave, and etc., you discover your own identity. Cultural identities diminish over time, while the authentic self is timeless and not bound by labels. The authentic self is often obscured beneath the veil of an imagined self which thrives due to the reinforced image of self. To discover one's identity becomes a journey of self-exploration. You might venture from one extreme to the other, while finding your true identity lies somewhere in between. Your soul is who you are. Your body and your mind are what you use to experience who you are in the realm of the relative. A strong identity is upheld by the capacity to realize your life purpose and live it. Those who stray from their purpose lose their identity and later strive to assign meaning to their life. People in intimate relationships refer to similar feelings of losing their identity. Your true identity may be found somewhere between your imagined self and outside your comfort zone. It was Bruce Hood, author of The Self-Illusion, Who Do You Think You Are?, who states, and I quote, "Who we are is the story of ourself, a constructed narrative that our brains creates," end of quote. Dereva Hillary for Y254 News.
Now we move to our discussion tonight. First of all, welcome, Denise. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
You had a wonderful day?
I had a good day, thanks.
Now, many people would say, I know myself. Like they say my name, where I come from, and they'll mention a few things about who they are, but they never go to details, maybe because they do not know. So when we speak of self-identity, what do we mean?
When we're talking about self-identity, it's more of who am I? You answer the question, who am I? Right. You know, what do I stand for? What makes me tick? So that becomes your self-identity, okay?
True.
And when we move into personality, simply put, personality is a cluster of repeat characters, okay? Characters that we have and we tend to repeat more than once tend to form our personality. Yeah, so in simple words, personality is our character.
Yeah, and majority of us have heard about the 4 types of personality, and one would be like, I belong to this, I belong to the other. I have traits of every personality. And now there's that form for personality that one feels and try to get to who they are and to understand themselves better and to really tell to what category they belong to. But then one would be like, how do I really get to know who I am by filling such a form? Because that's a formulated thing from an individual who could be like, let's see if this person is sociable or something. So how do they get to coming up with such a form, and then does filling that form really define who you are?
Okay, so I'll start first with the types of personalities. So most people understand personality in relation to extrovert or introvert, okay? But when we go broader, you'll find there are people who we call popular or sanguines. There are people that we call cholerics, who are also known as drivers. There are people that we call melancholics, and there are people that we call phlegmatics.
Right.
Now, all of the 4 clusters will fall either under introversion or extroversion. When it comes to the questionnaire that you were asking about, it's actually called a personality test.
Right.
And the test was actually created by a team of psychologists over decades who wanted to understand how human beings function, what makes them tick. You know, what are the differences between me, what's the difference between you and, for example, somebody else, you know, and that's how personality testing came about. So when you look at a test, like for example, the test that has 40 questions, you'll find that a character has been picked from every single personality that kind of will be either similar in meaning or completely opposite. Okay? An example would be, would you say you're playful, you're persuasive, you're persistent, you're peaceful?
So pick one of them.
If you pick one of them, each of those characters described there fall particularly into one cluster of a personality.
Right.
So it's either sanguine, it's either choleric, it's either a driver, or it's either a phlegmatic. So the 40 questions were actually narrowed down they were picked out in general. What characters most people would relate to, what characters most people would understand. And so when you fill them out, the cluster that you'll share most traits with or most characters with, that's actually where your personality falls. While we're still testing, you'll find that after you've done your personality test, you find that you're going to share characters across personalities. So you'll find you probably have some characters of a sanguine, which is an extrovert. You have some characters of the choleric, which is a driver, or we call them boss personalities. You've got some characteristics from the melancholic personality. These are analytical people. And you've got some characters from the phlegmatic.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
The reason you find that there's character sharing across personality is because we are exposed every single day. We interact with people. We're exposed to the environment. And you pick up on things. While you're growing up, when you're developing, everything that you're exposed to, you pick up on it. So people who are influential in your life, things that you felt were significant as you grew up, you picked up from them. An example, you could have somebody who would generally say, even without a personality test, I think I'm an introvert, just from the layman's knowledge they have about personality. I think I'm an introvert, but why would I say I'm an introvert? What would make me say I'm an introvert? Is it because I like to be by myself? Remember that even expressive personalities like the sanguine, the extrovert, they like being around people. They like making friends, but they also need something we call me time. They like being by themselves. The introvert also enjoys quiet time. They enjoy being by themselves. So why would you say you're an introvert and not an extrovert? The people who raised you, your parents, people who are close to you when you were growing up, your siblings, all of them have different personalities. So for example, if you have a very outspoken mom, very friendly, you're going to pick up some traits from her. If you have a very serious father, probably the no-nonsense type, you're going to pick up. And there are many. You're going to pick up. So you'll find that as you're developing, because you're exposed to them and they're closest to you and they're influences in your life, you'll pick up some characters from them. You're probably going to become a very friendly person because you learned how to be friendly from your mom. And that's a character. You're probably going to be very analytical, which is very serious. You analyze everything that you do. And you probably picked that up from your dad. Yeah, because he's very serious. So when you sit down and you start to analyze, who am I? When you want to answer the question, who am I? Then you find the characters that you tend to lean towards. a lot more are characters that you feel are comfortable with you.
Right.
And that's why you find we have character sharing across personalities because of what we're exposed to.
Just before you talk about character sharing, you spoke of a kid growing with their parents, and so they get traits from either mom or dad, depending on who they are. Now, the current generation we're having is where kids are taken to school very early, and so they have a long time with other kids, and majority of them who really don't have that much time with their parents. Now, how about such a kid? How will they come up to realize who they are, and if they look back to their homes, they never had that interaction with their parents or maybe their family members, but from other colleagues they have traits from them, or they have developed that behavior from other person? How do they get to their real identity?
Okay, so the process of personality building is actually a continuous process through life. So whether you are close to your parents or not, wherever you are, be it in a school or with your friends, you're going to pick up characters from them. If there's a teacher you liked, there's some characters you're going to pick up from that teacher, or there's some characters you're going to relate with from that teacher. And you'll find when children start to say, oh, so and so is actually my favorite teacher, without us looking into intelligence and the different forms of intelligence, you'll find it's actually very common where you have a child saying, oh, this and this subject is actually my favorite subject, but I have a very hard time passing.
Right.
And you'll find that subject, because they don't understand personality, they actually relate more to the teacher than the subject itself.
That could be mathematics.
It could be. You could have a really nice mathematics teacher, and you like the person as a teacher, because probably they're kind and, they help you when you need to be helped.
True.
And when you're a child, you relate to that, even if you don't understand the subject. So whether you're with your parents, whether you're with a teacher, whether you're with friends, you pick up from them. And also with personality, when it's developing, it influences friendships.
Right.
Why? Because as much as unlike poles repel, when it comes to friendships, you have to have something in common.
True.
Right?
Two can network together.
Exactly. So if you're still that young and you haven't been exposed to life, and you don't have that much experience to pick out from, then how do you make a friend? You're in nursery school. How do you come home and say, oh, so and so is my friend? It's because there are some characters that you see in your fellow peer or your fellow child at that particular point that you can relate to. So you understand each other on that level. And that's why you find that there are people who are very talkative, they like going out. Very extroverted people can actually be best friends with someone who's very introverted, someone who's not going to talk at all.
Yeah.
Because as much as they have different personalities, they have characters that they share, and that influences friendship.
All right. Now, there's something you told me earlier, and this is about speak of a pastor, a religious person. You find that they are family members. You'll find there's always one kid who will be different from the rest in terms of behavior, yet others are good. What can you say about this?
For that, it's actually very broad. There are very many influences that determine behavior in human beings.
Right.
And you could be exposed to the best of scenarios, or you could be exposed to the worst of scenarios. Okay? So just to go with your example where you said there's a pastor, and you'll find that the household is very religious, but the child turns out not very religious, very outgoing, complete opposite.
Right.
Aside from the stage in adolescence where everybody wants to call it rebellion, but it's actually something that we call identity formation. Yeah. You can actually start to say, this doesn't work for me. Okay? When we look, there's also another psychologist who said that we are born with innate capabilities, the potential for good and bad, the ability to choose for ourselves whether we like this or we don't like this.
True.
But we also have something we call free will. So we are free to choose that just because I've been exposed to good things, I don't have to follow. I don't have to be a positive person. If I want to be a negative person, I can. And people, for example, the child of a thief can also become a priest or a pastor, but they've been exposed to the worst possible scenarios. And they make the choice in life to become a better person. Potential for good and evil is something we all have. And it's a choice that we make based on what we're exposed to, our environment, nurture, characters, people.
Now, let's get to social cycles. Back home with your family, out here with the society, and probably at work. Now, many of the times that you find people judge you for who you are, they don't understand what kind of a person you are. At times you'll hear, that person is so proud, they don't talk with people, they don't interact with other people, just because they do not understand what kind of a personality. Now, how does one put it out? This is me, I can't do any better to fit to what you want. Now, how do I get to relate with people knowing now my personality? This is the kind of a person I am. Let's begin with workplaces.
Okay. So just to start off, you find that most of the time when you're having an argument with someone, or when you're having trouble with someone, is because you don't understand them and they don't understand you. So the first thing, even before we go into work and we go into social or we go into the family, is you have to understand who you are. The question, who am I, has to be answered. You have to understand your personality. You have to understand your characters. For example, when we're talking about somebody who's analytical, okay, they are very hardworking. They're perfectionists. They're thoughtful. They're lost in thought. Okay, they have a tendency to be very sensitive. They can also be very hard to please. But when you look at someone that we call a driver or a choleric, they're very persuasive, they're strong-willed, they're resourceful, okay? They're frank, they're tactless, they're domineering, and they can be short-tempered. But when you look at these two personalities, they're very hard-working personalities, and in the office place, they tend to thrive. But one tends to be more of the boss, and one tends to be more of the employee. Can you guess which one?
Of course, the boss now will be the choleric, the drivers.
Exactly. Why? Because they have a way of motivating people to move and do something. And then we also have this hard worker who's the melancholic. Everything that you need done is going to get done, and it's going to be done to perfection. But because the boss character or the choleric can tend to be tactless, and the melancholic is sensitive, when the two of them interact, if it is not structured, the melancholic will be, my boss is very mean, I don't need this, you know? And the boss will be, you know what? And the choleric will be, this melancholic is not aggressive enough. So this can actually start to cause tension in the workplace. But you see, it's all about understanding yourself, understanding that I know I can be sensitive, I know I'm a hard worker, I know I'm a perfectionist. So with everything that I do, how do I make sure that who I am comes out? How do I make sure that I don't fight with other people in the workplace? So once you understand yourself, once you have a personality test, and anyone who does a personality test for you will actually encourage you to learn more about other personalities. Why? Because from the moment you wake up every morning, you're going to interact with a different personality type. At least one of the four. Every single day. So which means the potential for you to maybe collide with someone or have a misunderstanding with someone is actually very, very high. If you don't understand them. But if you understand personality, and you don't have to understand it from a scholar level, just from a layman, the way you'd understand yourself, and say, you know what, there are some people who are like this. There are some people who are aggressive. There are some people who are friendly, but you can't rely on them. There are some people who are very emotional, and there are some people who just don't like conflict at all.
So I want us to take a short break, but before then, still on workplaces, I want you to help me. Many of the times people live in assumption. They are never told it's good to know the personality of the other person. They will go for team building retreats, what have you, but all they will be doing is about how to come up with the best production, but they never get to know now this is so and so, you can relate with them. Do you think it's important for organizations to teach people or to create awareness of learning the personalities of different kind of persons? Yeah, how do you think it should be encouraged? Do you think people should be educated on this?
Honestly, it should be encouraged. It needs to be there.
Right.
Because just to branch off into business a bit, the strength of a company is determined by its workforce.
Right.
How fast a company grows, how fast a company becomes profitable is in direct relation to who is working in that company. So if you have employees who are always fighting, your company is not going to turn over profits very fast, because instead of people working, they're constantly fighting.
Yeah.
And you know, when you're working for a company, you kind of have to work as a team. So if you can't understand each other as a team, whatever you were supposed to do as a team is not done. So that task drags on. It takes a long time. So your customers probably are not happy because the sales team is not coordinating with the installation teams. The customer service team is not coordinating with the billing team, you know?
Yeah.
And all of this, you're either purchasing or you're selling, whatever it is that you're doing. If your team is not working,
Yes.
then your business is not profitable.
Very true.
And the only way a team can work is if people understand each other. And that's why there are HR departments. HR is not only for payroll.
Yeah.
You know, there's something that we call employee well-being. You have to make sure that when your employees come, as much as their personal life may be none of your business, the truth of the matter is we're all humans.
Right.
So you cannot expect that I'm probably going to go home, fight with whomever I'm fighting with at home, have whatever challenges I'm fighting with, not process them at all, and then come to work and give you 100%. That's not going to happen. It's not humanly possible.
All right. Let's take a very short break, and when we come back, we shall be getting to know now how do you relate with your spouses if you're in a relationship, and if you want to get to a relationship, and then back home, how do you deal with your families? We take a very short commercial break. Don't go too far.
Y254. Imagine.
Kila mtu anasema, mara anaimba kama Harmonize, mwingine Willy Paul, wengine Alikiba. Kwa hiyo kila mtu anaongea na
Diamond.
For exclusive entertainment, join me for Limboko
And me, Feeling Adisa.
on Karaoke Live.
Live. See you Wednesday.
Nivishepe kidoleni waonyeshe mini wako kama sikutoshimie ai niachilie mapisi.
Oh, tumemwaga unga.
And it's a protege. Welcome. Such a short way up and such a long way down. It shall be a coronation when we land.
Sing it. Simplicity we use to survive. Many find it difficult because them ignorant and
Nose in nearby your place won't fix up. Why you not allow people business? Leave people business alone.
She wants to be like them people on TV. She wants to look like them girls in the magazine. King fella say I the conquering lion. Rockstar was my
Y254. Imagine.
Many thanks for keeping us company. We continue with our discussion here about self-identity, to know what kind of a person you are. Now, we're moving to a relationship. How do I get to understand my partner? This is who she is, and I am who I am. How now do we get along, understanding their personality?
And when it comes to relationships, it's actually almost the same thing across board. Right. You have to understand personality. Yeah. But with relationships, it's much more tougher, because these are two personalities that are coming together and they have to make it work one way or the other. Whether mtagombana, you have to stay together because you want to stay together, which means you have to put in the work to understand your partner, or to understand your girlfriend, or to understand your boyfriend. And the only way to do that is first know who you are. Right. Know that, nowadays a lot of women are being accused of being drama queens. We are probably not drama queens. It's just that if you don't understand us and understand that this is how we process.
But it's the truth.
No, we're not drama queens. We are expressive. We can tend to be expressive. So if that is not understood from that perspective, then you'll find someone is always going to be confused. And I don't understand why so-and-so is behaving like this. I don't understand why my boyfriend doesn't understand me. I don't understand why my girlfriend tends to be too harsh sometimes.
Right.
And it's all about understanding what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are, and trying to understand what your partner's weaknesses are and what their strengths are. Right. So once you understand and you know that when so-and-so is angry, then they would like some time. Give them that time. Right. But there's some people who don't want that time, so don't give them the time. But the only way you can know that is for you to understand.
All right. Now let's move to the family, and I want to speak of the kids. You find a kid is being punished because these are the kind of kids who want to keep it to themselves. They don't want to interact with others, and then the parent is like, this kid is hypocritic. They can't tell you anything. They can't even do anything as in terms of expressing themselves. You will never know this kid wants this thing, and they get punished for that. Now, how, as a parent, how now do I get to know my kid is of this type and they can't fill the form themselves?
First of all, understand your child.
Right.
Secondly, stop trying to make your child become like you. If you're a parent who's very outgoing and you enjoy speaking to people, your child does not necessarily have to be the same. So you have to learn how to be okay with who your child is growing up to become. Because remember, as much as you're the parent, you're not the only influencer in that child's life.
True.
They've got teachers, they've got friends. Today now we've got the media also, which means there's a lot of guidance that needs to be done. So when you're looking at trying to discipline your child and ensure that they understand the difference between good and bad. They understand why they are being disciplined. If you have a child that's more reserved, that's okay, because your child is probably developing into an introvert, and there's nothing wrong with being an introvert. If you have a child that's all over the place and very talkative and likes, talking to everybody, then that's probably going to become a very extroverted person. Right. And that's okay. They have their own strengths. Okay, so let that child develop and become the extrovert. But remember, you're still a parent. Your job is to guide. Your job is to discipline. Your job is to help.
Right.
But it's not for you to say that I want my child to be like this and try to force it on them. Let them develop as an individual.
Very true. Now, as we wind up, I'll give you 30 seconds just to get your final comments, your final recommendations as far as personality is of concern as we wind up.
Okay. So first, understand who you are.
Right.
Get a personality test done. Answer the question, who am I? And once that is done, learn not to judge what you don't understand. Just because someone behaves a certain way, it's not your place to come and say, uyu, apana, Kenya nafanya ni mbaya.
True.
Because you don't know who that person is, you don't know their personality. Right. So don't judge what you don't understand. And when you're interacting with people, they're not just people who are there to fulfill your needs. Okay? Know that they're individuals in their own right, the same way you are an individual. They have their own needs, their own wants, the same as you. So just because they are not in line with what you want does not mean that you cannot relate to them.
True.
Yeah.
All right. Many thanks, Shelin, for coming and sharing this wonderful topic. And actually, I'm glad that I thought I am this kind of a person, but now I know who I am back home. Many thanks for keeping us company, and I also want to believe you have learned something. And if you've not done the personality test, kindly just do it. It's enough something to know who you are, because you will be able to understand other people better in your social life, even at workplaces. She has been my guest, Shelin Denus. She is a psychologist, and my name is Dereva Hilawi. Have a good night.